Greetings adventurers, Delver here. Today I'm talking about Masters of the Universe Revelation Part 2. I reviewed Part 1 a few months ago, so go check that out if you haven't already. To recap, I thought the animation, the voice acting, and especially the fight scenes were all top notch. The story wasn't really anything special, but I thought it was alright for what it was. It spent a little too much time wallowing in melodrama, and Tila could be kind of a pill at times, but I thought the other characters were handled well, and overall I felt like the show landed more emotional moments than it missed. And if nothing else, the brisk pacing kept things from ever getting bogged down. It didn't turn me into a diehard MOTU fan, but I did end up enjoying it a lot more than I was expecting to, and I was definitely interested to see where they went with it. Well, after a 3-month wait, Part 2 is finally here, and as one of the only people on YouTube who gave Part 1 a positive review, I figure I'm obligated to review this as well. So without further ado, let's get into it. I'll start with a quick plot summary, so if you want to avoid spoilers, skip to here. Part 2 opens with a flashback to when the sorceress first became the sorceress, as she leaves baby Tila with Man-at-Arms before submerging herself in a magic pool that binds her to the power of Grayskull or something. We then pick up right where Part 1 ended. Skeletor has become Skelegod after stealing the Power Sword and grievously wounding Prince Adam. He spends so much time gloating, however, that the sorceress is able to break free and teleport Adam, Tila, Andra, and Cringer to safety, though Man-at-Arms gets left behind thanks to Evil Lyn. Skeletor promptly kills the sorceress and mocks Man-at-Arms for grieving before throwing him into Castle Grayskull's dungeon with a big hentai monster called the Orlax. He also makes Evil Lyn the new sorceress for some reason. Adam, Tila, Andra, and Cringer wind up back in Eternos, where Tila begins to harness her sorceress powers, using them to heal Adam. They're soon confronted by Clamp Champ and Fisto, who tell them that the king and queen, along with most of the city's population, have been evacuated to some place called Point Dread. Then a giant projection of Skeletor shows up and starts turning the remaining inhabitants into skeleton monsters. Champ and Fisto also get infected, and the team is forced to kill them. Skeletor shows up and brags about sending their souls to Subternia before Adam tries calling on the power of Grayskull without the sword. He actually succeeds, but without the sword to temper the power, he completely hulks out and goes on a rampage, effortlessly eviscerating the undead horde before duking it out with Skeletor in the streets. Eventually, Tila manages to teleport everyone away to the Mystic Mountains. She tries to calm Hulkman down Black Widow style, but he hears a horn in the distance and charges off towards it. The others follow and they end up at Dread Point. Hulkman charges into camp and beats up a bunch of soldiers before King Randor shows up and tells Adam how proud he is of him, which is what finally calms him down and lets him change back to normal. Adam reunites with his parents, Tila and Randor patch things up, and Andra becomes a lieutenant. Meanwhile, back at Castle Grayskull, Skeletor is obsessed with figuring out how Adam was able to harness all that power without the sword. Apparently figuring this out involves staring at the cosmic void or something. Skeletor finds out that all the planets are about to align in the exact position they were when the universe was created, which will apparently enhance his power enough for him to kill He-Man. Also, this makes Evil Lyn super nihilistic. Speaking of Evil Lyn, Duncan and Beastman both try to convince her to turn against Skeletor, and we find out that the reason for her loyalty is that her parents tried to eat her when she was a kid, forcing her to run away and live as a thief until Skeletor rescued her from some thugs. However, she's apparently had enough of Skeletor's shit and finally decides to double-cross him. She seduces him into relinquishing his power so that his god boner won't kill her, no, I'm not kidding, before taking the sword for herself, becoming God Lyn. God Lyn does a black cloud projection of her own, where she promptly nukes Valhalla in front of everyone before announcing that she's going to use the Celestial Apex to destroy the entire universe. Back at Point Dread, the team concludes that their only hope is for Tila to harness her sorceress powers. Tila tries to send a psychic message to all of Eternia asking for help, but she doesn't know if it worked. Adam finds out his parents split up after he died, a plot point that goes absolutely nowhere. Skeletor shows up to help, and Adam comes up with a plan. He and Skeletor head to Grayskull and challenge God Lyn, while Tila and Andra sneak in through the sewers. They run into some of Skeletor's henchmen, but are saved when Man-at-Arms shows up along with the Orlax, having used its goop to short-circuit his cell controls. Duncan tells Tila that her psychic message worked, and the two have a heartfelt moment before they're attacked by some more goons. Duncan and Andra hold them off, while Tila heads to the magic pool from the flashback. Adam and Skeletor continue fighting Godlin, while Randor and his army assemble outside the castle. Randor and Marlena make up just in time for all of Teela's reinforcements to show up. Upon noticing the army, Godlin summons Scareglow and his army of ghostly shadow ghouls. However, this also allows Orko to come back, and apparently Trollins operate like Istari wizards because he's now sporting white robes and a power boost. Orko gets the sword away from Godlin and back to Adam, who turns into He-Man and also powers up Skeletor again as well. Also, Andra and Duncan join the battle outside. Just as the tide is turning in their favor, however, the planets align and Godlin begins her ritual. Meanwhile, Teela enters the pool, where the ghost of the sorceress tells her that she must give up her attachments to the outside world and become bound to Castle Grayskull in order to become the true guardian of its power. Teela's like, nah, screw that, friendship is magic, yo, and becomes the new sorceress without strings attached. Her and Godlin have a superhero sky fight, while Skeletor decides out of the blue that all hope is lost, so he might as well kill He-Man before the universe ends. Marlena drops a bomb on him, and He-Man goes out to aid the fight against the ghoul army. Skeletor shows up again, but He-Man is just like, bruh, fuck off already, and throws him away Team Rocket style. Teela and Godlin take their battle to the dawn of time, where Lyn saw the god Zor die, only this time Teela shows her Zor being reborn as the Big Bang or something, which convinces her that life is beautiful, nihilism is for losers, and that she probably shouldn't try to kill the universe. Lyn surrenders and gives up her power, and Teela and He-Man make a giant portal that sucks up all the ghosts. Orko starts to get pulled in as well, but Lyn saves him. And with that, the show comes full circle, with a ceremony to commemorate Andra becoming the new Man-at-Arms. Adam and Teela have a touching heart-to-heart on the balcony, and Lyn leaves her staff behind before leaving for parts unknown. Also, it turns out Triclops' techno-goddess was actually a servant of Hordak the entire time, and the episode ends with Skeletor getting pumped full of nanomachines, son! And that concludes Masters of the Universe Revelation Part 2. So, what did I think of it? Honestly, kinda disappointing. Remember how I said Part 1 had too much melodrama? Well, Part 2 ramps that up to 11. The first 3 episodes are practically nothing but characters pretentiously pontificating to each other. The writing here is not nearly as deep as the writers seem to think it was, and it doesn't have Part 1's snappy pace to save it this time. Part 2 also has an insane case of spectacle creep. It's like they took the ending of Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood and mixed it with Gurren Lagann while lacking the emotional weight of either of them. Additionally, there were a ton of plot holes surrounding the power of Grayskull and how it works. Like, for instance, if Eva Lynn, as the sorceress, controls the power's flow, then how is Adam able to summon it to become Savage He-Man? Why did she have to take the sword from Skeletor to become Godlin? How were Adam and Skeletor able to power up in their fight with her? At one point she mentions Skeletor could have drawn Adam's soul out of his body or killed Randor with a thought, and we already saw with Clamp and Fisto that Skelegod had control over souls, so why didn't he use that power? Hell, why didn't Lyn use that power when she was fighting them? Did she just forget she had it? Come to think of it, why the hell did Skeletor make Eva Lynn more powerful than himself to begin with? And how is Teela able to inherit the power of the sorceress without becoming bound to Grayskull? Maybe there's some MOTU lore nut out there that can answer all these questions, but honestly, I think it's just sloppy writing. And speaking of sloppy writing, I should probably touch on Teela a bit more. I think this might be the first time I've ever seen a character undergo a mechanical arc. That is to say, she goes through all the motions of a character arc, but I can't tell if she actually changed at all. Like, even as she's accepting the position of sorceress, she's still admonishing her mother for abandoning her. At this point, her complaining feels less like coping with trauma and more like she's being a self-absorbed child. And since she's somehow able to become the sorceress without being bound to Grayskull, I can't help but wonder, did she actually learn anything? Oh, and Eva Lynn. We're just gonna let her go like that? After everything she did? You know, nuking the afterlife, trying to destroy the universe, working for Skeletor for all those years? You're not gonna turn her to stone or banish her to the Phantom Zone or something? Since when do we just let omnicidal supervillains get away scot-free? Even My Little Pony makes them do probation at least. In summary, Masters of the Universe Revelation Part 2 once again has excellent animation, voice acting, and awesome fight scenes. However, it lacks the solid pacing of Part 1 and completely drops the ball with its writing, indulging in pretentious soliloquies which only serve to further weigh down a finale already bloated by spectacle creep and ridden with plot holes. The shockingly poor execution of Teela's character arc just adds insult to injury. And with that, my final rating for Part 2 is a 4 out of 10. Combined with my rating for part 1, which I've retroactively lowered to a 7, we get a final score of 5.5 out of 10 for the whole series. I still stand by my positive assessment of part 1, but as with any story, the ending is paramount, and this ending was absolutely a letdown. It's not the unwatchable train wreck other YouTubers are making it out to be, but it easily could have been so much better. At this point, I would only recommend it if you've already watched part 1. I do want to end things on a positive note, so before I go, I'll just point out that Adam never gave up being He-Man and Tila and Andra didn't get together, proving once and for all that Kevin Smith wasn't lying and Clownfish TV is and always was completely full of shit. I'm the Rambling Rune Pony, thanks for watching.